remember trying to talk to people on bike, and I would just like hit the sidewalk wrong and just totally biff it. And like in a skirt, it's like whatever, like fine, it happens. But it was just embarrassing because like I remember one time I was biking and I hit the curb, and then I like almost fell onto a person, and then my bike like flew out under me, and then my shoe flew the other way, and it was like, it was a mess. It was really bad. But it was fine. Like I still have a scar on my foot from it, but like no other major injuries. I wore a helmet, that's probably why. For transfers, what happens is we go to the mission home and we trade companions, we trade cars, we trade items, things like that. And so me and my companion drove around the mountain to get to the mission home, which is at the Oakland Temple. And it was about an hour drive, and all I ate that day was a donut hole to start my day on bike. And so what happened was I got my new companion. She's straight from Tonga, and she was a visitor center sister, so she wasn't necessarily sure about, you know, what it was like to be full prof. So I was just talking to her about that. We like borrowed 2 bikes from the mission home because I was like, I have a month left on the mission. Like, I'm not buying a bike. And so she rented one too. And so we had an elder help us put them on the back of our car. And we're driving down the freeway, which, like, I think the max was like 60, and we had these little boxes on our cars called Tiwis, and they track how fast you go. If you're going too fast, they're like, check your speed, and so you have to slow down or else you get like a warning. And so I was driving, and like I'm just talking to her about, like, you know, we have to plan every single hour of the day. There's so much that happens, and she like was like, what's going on? And this lady to the left of us starts like honking like really hard, and I was like, what's going on? Like my lights are on, like everything's fine, I'm going the speed limit, like nothing should be going wrong. And she goes, your bikes, and I was like, oh no, not today. And so I'm like in, like there's like 4 lanes and I'm in the 3rd one, so I like pull all the way over. And we get out, and like the pedal was stuck right, so it was like 2 bikes side by side, and one of the pedals got stuck in the spokes of the other bike, and it had like dragged the seat, and it was like grated all the way down. We had like half a seat left by the time we figured out what happened. And like we got there, and I was like, man, I'm super sorry about your bike. I don't even know what happened. And so she was like, well, shoot, like, I haven't ridden a bike in forever. And I was like, I haven't either. This is awful. The last time I rode a bike, I hit a car, and it was awful. And so we were both new to the area too, and so that didn't help. And we were like, okay, we're gonna sit down. We pull out our area book, which has all the information in it, and our map is like this dinky little thing. And I was like, I can't even read this. How are we supposed to get anywhere? And so I was like, okay, we need to go and find our bishop, which we were having dinner with that night, which was like super handy. It was like very well planned. And so we, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, we decided to venture out on the bikes instead of in the car. And the area was like a long strip. Like, I don't know exactly how long it was, but it was a strip. And so we lived outside of our area, actually, even at the top of it. And we realized as we were biking that our bishop was at the bottom of the strip in some neighborhood somewhere. And we got out there, and I think we forgot our directory too. And so we had our phone, we like called the bishop, we're like, where exactly do you live? And at this point I still hadn't eaten anything, actually. And we got down the road and we're biking, and I'd never been on a bike before, neither my companion. And so we're dealing with the skirts, we're dealing with the helmets, and I was like biking, and I was like, okay, we have to obey the traffic laws. If it's a stop, we have to stop too. Maybe we should stay on the sidewalks. And she got really far behind me. I didn't notice this, but I was probably about like 20 feet ahead of her, and I looked behind, and she's like, I don't know what's wrong. And I was like, well, I don't know either. And so I turned around and I looked at her bike, and I was like, oh, your tire is flat. And I was like, well, great, of course. And so we fished out some quarters, and we like started like pumping her tire, and we're like, okay, you know, we'll pray, and hopefully this gets us to our next stop. And so we kept biking around, and we got to our bishop's house by a miracle. We really needed to get there, and parked our bikes in the garage. And we had dinner with them. We talked to the bishop. We talked about getting a new map, about an updated directory, things like that. And we come back out to the garage, and both of my tires had gone flat, and hers had gone flat again. And I was like, how does this even happen? And so then we borrowed our bishop's bikes. He happened to have two, which was really handy again. And we biked back home because we didn't really know what to do. We started biking home just so that we could get things from the apartment, get situated, look at our planners. Actually, we didn't even have planners. The elders were covering both areas, and they only planned for their own area, so we didn't have planners. But the tires went flat again on both of our bikes. And so we called our bishop's wife, and she picked us up and took us home. And that's what happened that day.